Good morning, Tervetuloa. This is stage two, day two at the solution stage. I'm so happy you were able to join us. I'm so excited. We have four fantastic speakers with four different topics. After the last speaker, I encourage you to go over to the future stage, where there's going to be a closing show and also interesting keynote by Professor Rita McCarth. And of course, the day will end with an after party at Virbela Beach. So if you have any questions, as always, you're more than welcome to join at slido.com using #shift to ask the speakers questions. And let's start with the day with the first topic, that is, what motivates the no bullshit generation to work and consume? Let's find out. Our first speaker is Alexandra Davidsson, the Secretary General at the Swedish Association for Responsible Consumption. Alexandra, the stage is yours.
Hi, everyone. So nice to meet you all at the Shift Business Virtual Business Web Festival. So my name is Alexandra Davidsson, and I'm really excited to meet you all during this talk that I'm going to have. I'm going to speak about work and consumption in the no bullshit area. And I'm really excited to be here. So as I said, my name is Alexandra, and I work as the Secretary General for the Swedish Association of Responsible Consumption. And my background is that I have a Bachelor in International Politics and Economics and a Master's in Global Studies. And I've been working in the organization for almost 5 years now. And before that, I was working with the UN in New York and in Rome. So the organization I'm working in, we are helping consumers answer the question, how can I live a more sustainable lifestyle? What can I do? People and the news and the media are talking a lot about sustainability, especially during the past few years. And we as the consumers are almost expected to know it all, to know what it means. But sustainability is such a broad concept. So we're here to help people in their everyday life. And today we're going to talk about work and consumption in the no bullshit era. And this is a subject that I'm particularly excited about. The no bullshit generation, or the no bullshit era, is something I've been talking about for a couple of years now, and it's the millennials who make up of the no bullshit generation. And I'm going to explain a little bit more why I believe it's the millennials and why I label millennials as myself like the no bullshit generation. And it's pretty much that, like, we can see within our followers and the younger generation that we are caught up on the science, and we do our homework and our research, and greenwashing is not available anymore. We're educated. We want to make a difference, especially up here in the Nordic countries. We don't believe everything we read, and we also do the research, and we see that, oh my God, we need to take care of the one planet that we do have. And I'm going to make some generalizations right now, so please be aware of that. But still, like, I want to draw the whole picture, and I argue that millennials, or the no bullshit generation, prefers freedom over security and sustainable values over the price tag. Like, the work-life balance is really important, but also to work at a company that feels good in your heart. Like, where you spend your time working, you do that in a company that does good, or that you resonate with your values. And it doesn't really matter like what things cost. It's more about what they're made of. Like, the values are higher than the price tag. Not all the time, but still, I hope you follow me in my thinking here. And I argue it's like this, especially in the Nordic region. A lot of things is happening right here, right now, and we're quite educated in the subject of sustainability, even that's a broad subject. And I argue that this translates to the consumption patterns and the workplace due to our identity. And I believe that a circulant, the consumer of, will be the consumer of the future. For instance, the Circularity Gap Report shows that the world right now is only 8.6% circular. That's almost 9%. So there's a huge revenue to be made here if we only grow this, if we take care of the resources and the material that we got right now. We need to take care of that. And a lot of things is happening right now in the Nordic context. Let me start in 2018, when the IPCC report was released. That report shows that goal number 12, responsible consumption and production, affects all the other goals, indirectly or directly. So how we consume is vital for the survivment of our planet. Like, it's so important with sustainable consumption and production. And in the fall of 2019, the Nordic Councils of Ministers, they actually made a decision that we in the Nordics will be front runners in sustainable consumption and production. And that's all good. In July this year, Sweden adopted a national strategy for circular economy. Circular economy, circular consumption is part of the solution. For a regenerative economy, we need to take care of what we already got. For instance, if all the people in the world would live and consume as we do in Sweden, it would require 4.2 planet Earths. And that's 3 too much. At the same time, in June this year, on the SDG index, we topped the list, saying we're best in the world on the sustainable development goals. But at the same time, if we look and calculate with the ecological footprint, we can see that we're number 16 worst in the world. So we have a lot of work to do when it comes to sustainable production and consumption, right? And we see this trend now with circular economy and circular consumption. And I do believe that a true sustainable consumer will and is a circulant. And I believe that the no bullshit generation will be circulants in the future. I think that's the future we're heading towards. And we're in a momentum right now. Today, in the midst of Corona, we're in a momentum. We have changed the way we work. And in the same report, the Circularity Gap Report, shows that the younger generation, the millennials, will only continue to ask for more digital and circular options in their consumption. So there are some research saying we're heading this way too. And during Corona, we changed the way we work. Everything is more digital now. We work from home, and a lot of people loses their jobs. But a lot of people also change their job to something that they really want to do, because suddenly we have the time to find our inner voice, find what we do, what we really resonate with. And I think that we will see the effects of this much, much more in the coming years. But I sense that we're going to experience a lot of change now. I'm sorry I lost my track a little bit, but what I'm going to say is that I believe that circular economy is the future. And I believe that only more customers, only more employees will ask for better and more sustainable solutions. Greenwashing, not doing it all, not be transparent, will not work anymore. This has to change. So having this in mind, the background and the climate that we operate in right now, I argue that these values and the identity that we have, or the way we're living now, will spread even into the workplace. Like the boundaries between being an employee and what I do in my private life is like, it's not there anymore. This will change. And as conscious consumers, circulants, the no bullshit generation, as we enter the workplace and climb perhaps a non-corporate ladder, like we can see that we change jobs more often, etc. They also become your conscious customers and your employees. They are aware of the interdependence between individuals and companies and act accordingly. So, as I mentioned earlier, I believe that the work-life balance will be even more important. Is it sustainable to work 50, 60 hours a week? Or is it sustainable to work a little less, but a little less money to live a more sustainable life? Or is it not? Like, it's all about following the energy curve. That's something I adopted in the organization I'm heading. Following your energy curve is so important. And it also brings for better and more effective results. Like for some days, I just have to sleep in. Otherwise, I know my body will get sick. So I listen to the energy that I have. I sleep in if I have to, not canceling meetings, but I think you get the point. Like, I have the flexibility, the full flexibility to following the health of myself. And when I do that, I also perform much more. For some days I can do 20, 25 things, on my to-do list. But on some days, my brain is just so slow that I can only do like 3 or 4. And the beauty with that is that I can follow that curve. Of course, deadlines are holy, external meetings are holy. You need to have some sort of a boundary. But I believe this is the future of working, where it doesn't really matter where you are or how you're doing it, just that I'm doing it. I'm reaching the goals, and I make it work with my personal life, and I make it work with my health. And then I also make it work with the health of the planet. Of course, I'm not saying that I'm perfect in any way. I'm just saying that I do what I resonate with. And even more so during these challenging times, I find my inner voice and find my calling. And I believe that we will see these patterns much, much more broader in the society. I believe that we have a tremendous opportunity to change. So are we a part of the solution, or are we a part of the problem? Do I run a business that takes care of the resources that we already have, resources that we already use in the society, or do I throw them away? Can I make new things out of what's already out there? Do I align my business towards a regenerative or circular economy? Like, what can we do more in order to, one, be an attractive for our customers and our clients, but also to keep the employees at the workplace? Of course, everybody's different. Some people like full flexibility. Some prefer going to work 9 to 6 and that's it. And I believe we have to be agile. We have to have a company that's agile to these different people, because that might help. Working 9 to 6 is actually good for some people and some not. And we have to be flexible enough to meet both needs. Then I think we will be attractive as an employer, but also do good in the society. I think that's part of the key. And yeah, I think that's part of the key, like circulants, millennials, the no bullshit generation. I think a lot of has happened and invented so much during our time. So we strive to develop and we strive to do better. And I argue that we don't settle. I know I'm making a generalization right now, but please see my bigger point, my bigger picture here that I'm trying to paint or whatever. But yeah, I think change is here. We're in the middle of it. Question is, what do we do with it? I cannot see myself work for a company or in an organization where I cannot follow my energy curve, where I don't resonate with what I do, where I don't feel like I contribute to the survival of the planet. I'm actually even scared to change from the work that I have now, because I don't know that many other employers that have this kind of view, you know. But it's also time for you to have a roundtable discussion here on the 40 minutes. I hope that I helped you, like, get your mind going. Like, this is my point of view and my perspective, and you can start with discussing the discussion by asking yourself, do you agree with the discussion? Do you agree? And also, in the light of this background, will circulants, let me explain what circulants are. Like, a circulant is someone who's borrow, remake, shop secondhand, rent. It's a user, not an owner. It's not buying newly produced stuff, really. That's the simple explanation. But will circulants thrive in your business model? Like, think both what you offer your customers, but also your employees. And if you aren't an employee, if you're employed somewhere, where you are right now, will a circulant thrive there, or will a person who needs to do something good, will it thrive there in the long run? And also what your company organization, what they offer, will circulants thrive? And do you believe distance work is here to stay, that we've seen in Corona? Is the way we work now more digital work? Is it here to stay? Where do you see that we're going? Where do you see where we're going? Where are we heading to? According to your view, according to your perspective, where are we heading? And where would you want us to head in order to feel good? What is the future that you do want to see? And after you've been discussing for 40 minutes, I'll take questions and we have a discussion about it. And I really, really look forward to it. And I want to end with my favorite quote, and that is, why should we follow the stream when we can create the wave? Why should we do stuff the way we've always been doing them when perhaps there is a better way? Thank you so much for listening in, and I'll talk more in 40 minutes. Okay, bye, good luck.
Thank you, Alexandra, for this lovely presentation, and thank you for joining us via Verbola. Today, we're actually not going to have any roundtable discussions, but during the break time, of course, if you want to network and you want to discuss this topic, you're able to do so, and Alexandra will probably stick around. But Alexandra, I have some questions for you, if that's okay.
Yes, go ahead.
Fantastic. Actually, I I saw, like, when I heard your presentation, I relate a lot because I think of myself as a millennial. I'm gonna be 30 next month, and actually the outfit that I'm wearing today, it's like a dress and sneakers, of course, because fashion, and it's all borrowed and secondhand. And I truly believe this circular idea. But I'm worried about the next generations. What about Generation Z and what about Generation Alpha? Will they also have the same values as my generation? What do you think?
I think their values will be more, even more aware and even more responsible. See it with, engagement in.
Sorry, Alexandra, you're breaking up a little bit. Can you start over, please? Sorry.
All right, let's see if it's better now. But I believe that they will be even more more of these values. That's my foresight. But I love your outfit too. Great.
Thank you so much. I love it too. Have you heard about the trend of minimalism? Do you think it's just a trend, or is there something more?
No, I don't think it's just a trend. I think it's something more. There was actually research done by the Kairos Future and a county that did a foresight on the 6 groups of the future them were actually, and I believe that we will only see them grow.
Okay, you also launched the initiative Circle Monday. Can you tell us more about that?
Yes, thank you. So I didn't fund the White Monday campaign that I called, that's now called from this year Circular Monday, but I helped build it up. And it's the complete opposite of Black Friday. So Black Friday is perhaps the day that mostly represents the overconsumption and it's built on a linear economy. The opposite to linear is circular. So it's the Monday before Black Friday where we collect circular deals, circular discounts, 100% circular discounts. Shop guilt-free, not harming the environment. We do encourage people to buy what they really need, but we're people. We want to make deals. We want to buy stuff that you don't really need. That's when we are advantages of the resources that we already have. So this campaign that spread, organized for the 3rd year last year, and it spread to over 550 supporting companies, investors, and organizations. The campaign hashtag was exposed over 74 million times, and this is a sign that what I believe that people want to be part of the solution. It has to be easy. So circular economy, circular consumption is the future.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. And as a millennial, there's one thing that I'm willing to pay more if I know that this item is sustainable and it's going to last longer. But the thing is, I'm never going to have the same income and welfare as my parents or grandparents had. What do you think about that?
Well, how do you mean?
Well, like my parents and grandparents, they were more wealthy and they could afford like nicer cars and things like that. But I, as a millennial, I am struggling more with my income and stuff, but I'm using my income differently. So maybe that will also affect businesses as well.
Mm-hmm. Yes, of course. And I think growth here, GDP for growth is not possible. Like sometimes we already have enough, really, and it's about to take care of the stuff that we already have, and how we spend our money will of course affect the business. And I think smart cities, smart business is the future. Like we take care of the stuff that we already have. That's my thoughts about that. I think I'm not sure if I understood your question correctly.
Yeah, you did.
All right.
Yes, thank you for the answer. And there's also one worry that I have always. Like I see a lot of like labels that this is good for the environment, but I also heard a lot of criticism about greenwashing. Can you explain a little bit about that and like how I should avoid things that might not be actually environmentally friendly?
Yeah. So here information is key, and that's really the key. A lot of companies out there are greenwashing. I mean, people who work in the companies are people like you and I. We're people, and we want to be good. We want to do good, right? And we really want to believe that we're doing that. So it's like I can understand the concept of greenwashing because companies need to survive. It's mostly about profit, and but a change is happening also. Like this is a little bit of a sidetrack, but investors around the world are not talking about investing for profit. They're talking about investing for impact. And greenwashing is basically saying that something is good when it's really not. So information here is the key. On our website, we have a lot of tips and tricks, but it's time consuming. So organizations or influencers, that's sustainable influencers, they're needed here to spread that knowledge.
Yes, absolutely. Information is the key. So I totally agree with that. Can you also repeat what's the website and where we can find you and your doings?
Of course. So you can go into responsibleconsumption.org and .se or medvetenkonsumtion.org. And you can follow us on LinkedIn or Instagram, and feel free to add me on LinkedIn if you'd like to talk a little bit more. I do some live sessions there. Yeah, and feel free to contact me.
I will definitely do that. And what is like the main takeaway you want the audience to take from this presentation and what we discussed?
The main takeaway is, I would say, like, do you agree with this foresight or these thoughts? Like, is this the future that you're seeing? And if it's not, like, I believe we're in the momentum right now. And it's like, what future do you want to be a co-creator of? Like, that's my key takeaway. And also, of course, please use and spread the word circulant that we launched. So feel free to use that.
Fantastic, Alexandra. Thank you so much for joining us. And Alexandra, I hope you stick around and maybe you can talk with some people and network. But we're going to take a break and we'll be back at 12 where Karina Czapiewska is going to talk about her thing. And I hope you can join us at 12. In the meantime, I encourage you to visit the expo hall. You can go from your screens to the left and go to Expo Hall and check it out and just talk to people and network and have a great time at Shift Webstival. We'll be right back. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, and welcome back to Solution Stage. I hope you enjoyed your break and I hope you're ready to learn more. And for the next session, we have here at Virbala Karina Czapiewska, who is the co-founder and managing director of Blue 21. And she will give a presentation about how to keep your feet dry and your head cool. So Karina, you have the stage.
Hello, everyone. Behind your screen, somewhere in the world, this is Karina Czapiewska from the Netherlands. And I am presenting here on behalf of 3 companies, Blue 21, which is my own company, that focuses on floating urban development, the Shimizu Corporation, company from Japan that is a large developer, architecture and engineering firm, and the Finance Bay Area development company that is currently developing the tunnel project. This presentation will be about floating urban development and how it can be applied in the Baltic region as well. Next slide. So let's start at looking what's happening around the world. Cities are facing multiple challenges. We see population growth, a lack of affordable homes, increasing of property prices, traffic congestions, and all of this is also influenced by the effects of climate change. Next slide. This means that city officials and governments have a very big task in the coming years. And if we look at what still needs to be built, almost 60% of all the real estate and housing projects within the cities still need to be built. That's a huge task. Next slide. And this task is even more complicated because of the fact of different effects of climate change. Like we can see here that sea levels are anticipated to rise more than 30 centimeters in the next decades as well. Exactly at the places where most of the development will be happening. Next slide. So if we put these two trends together, we see that rapidly growing areas are very often located in flood risk areas. Next slide. And that's not only it, because next to the urban development, there's also more space needed because of the changed consumption of people. So there's more space needed for food production, the increase of use of biofuels. So there's space needed to produce these crops, and sustainable energy production in ways of windmills and so on. So there's a huge ask for more space, more production space. If we would extrapolate the way we're using space right now, in 2050, we would come short of a size of Northern America, 22 million square kilometers of space. So where can we find this space? So there's many options considered, but if we look at our blue planet, that's the answer. Next slide. And how do we do that? Well, the most interesting locations are very close to these cities that are being built and further developed. Next slide. And often countries already know this, so they create new land next to these cities by land reclamation. That means that a large amount of sand, rock, and so on is being replaced to the location where the new land has to be created. There's numerous projects all around the world, and I have a few examples here. For example, in Denmark, there is a big industrial and nature island that will be reclaimed. In the port in Sweden, a large port area is planning to be reclaimed. And in Monaco, they're currently finalizing a large residential reclamation area. And in Asia, we see even larger projects for housing and real estate, like the one in Hong Kong, Singapore, and Malaysia. Next slide. Where reclamation sometimes is the answer, often there is a better solution out there, and that's floating development. And why is this? Well, first of all, it's scalable, and it takes a lot less time to develop. If we look at stabilization of soil, sometimes this can take up to 5 years before anything can be built on it. That's a waste of resources, time, and in that case, also money. The floating development has the possibility of being prefabricated somewhere else and towed to the end location. This means that in front of a city center, the construction nuisance, like noise and particulate matter, could be decreased to a minimum because the prefabrication happens somewhere else in a more remote area. It adapts to sea level because it can rise up with the rising sea level. It has a lot more potential for ecological habitat creation, and there's no landfill needed, so it's less disruptive. Moreover, it's resistant to different kinds of nature effects, hazards, like earthquakes and tsunamis. Next slide, please. So what are other potentials of floating? Well, as I already mentioned, you create new living space on the water close to the city center. Next slide. But it also often has a positive economic effect because you create more value to the water. And moreover, it's very often financially competitive with land reclamation. It's safer than on land, lots safer. It has an exceptionally high safety level because it's an engineered structure. It can survive a 1 in 10,000 year storm. A lot of places on the world right now don't have the safety level in their coastal areas. And in face of climate change, it can also withstand floods, typhoons, and earthquakes a lot better than locations on land. Next slide. Because of its innovative nature, it attracts all sorts of high-tech industries and jobs, and it has great potential for new ecological habitat creation under and around the platforms. Next slide, please. As I already mentioned, it's climate proof because it adapts to future sea level rise, and it can function as flood shelter, and it can involve climate sensitive communities to help them solve their daily struggles with floods. And because we can start from scratch in a new place, the lessons learned and the lessons not to be repeated from on-land projects can be applied on this new location. Next slide. So it's not something new. So the building blocks are already there. All over the world, we can find different examples of floating projects, like floating districts, swimming pools, walkways, solar farms, wind farms, and even a dairy farm here in Rotterdam. Next slide. And also in more offshore locations, we find large-scale oil storages, large-scale piers, cruise terminals, production plants, hotels, restaurants. Next slide. So now let's look at the Baltic region and what we can do and what we're planning to do right here. Next slide. So as Peter Westerbacke 2 years already told during the Shift festival back then, the Finest Bay area is developing a tunnel between Helsinki and Tallinn, which will be home to a high-speed rail connection. Along this tunnel, different other initiatives are being developed. And one of these initiatives is the creation of new island locations. There are 3 main island locations that are occurring at the moment around this development. First of all, our island archipelago, very close to Helsinki, with small islands. Most of them will be floating. A very large-scale flower-shaped island that will be constructed by all the rock and other materials that is reclaimed from the tunnel excavation. And finally, on the Estonian side, we are planning to do the Green Float Tallinn project. More about this in the next slides. So next slide, please. The Green Float Tallinn is based on the Shimizu Corporation vision of the large-scale Green Floating Cities project. This project is planned to be realized in a very large size around equator locations that can be home to thousands of people, animals, and plants. Next slide. It will encompass plant factories, food production, beaches, marine cities. Next slide. A terrestrial forest, a marine forest, and of course, cities for residents and residential use, offices, research facilities, stores, and so on. The connection will be mainly done by ship terminals. The construction system for this large-scale green float has been already developed, and it has 3 starting points that we're looking at. It has to be unified, a modular system, automated so it can be built fast and in a very efficient way, and use of robotization. So the number of workers at the construction site can be reduced. Please look at next slide, the movie about this. Next slide, please. The system has been tested elaborately in different types of situations. Here is an image of a tank test for typhoon conditions. Next slide. Many of these experimental conditions have been tested, and the structure withstands all of them in terms of stability and safety. After this process, it has been certified by a public third-party organization, and it now holds a certificate for the floating structure. So how do we foresee this all for the Baltic Sea? Well, the floating island is inspired by the green float large-scale development, but it will be a smaller size first step that resembles it. It combines two main starting points: a nature satellite that gives the people leisure and experience of nature that are highly appreciated in these very busy times. And on the other hand, a business satellite that will show businesses and new innovations from all over the world. Also, in both satellites, residential areas for permanent, short, and longer stay will be realized. A little bit more about this. Next slide, please. So the nature satellite will have, for example, a beach resort that can in summer be visited by tourists and people from local people. Next slide. But also a winter beach resort that will use and make use of the beauty and different facilities that are often found during winter. Next slide. It will emphasize the forest spirituality from the culture of both Finland and Estonia. And a nice anecdote of this is that during this procedure, we found out that there's a lot of overlap in the forest folklore and spirituality messages and stories between Japan and Finland and Estonia. Next slide. There will be festivals organized that will be shown to the whole world on the folklore and the cultural festivities. Next slide. Also, new types of amusement will be offered. Of course, we're looking at a Angry Birds Park because the founders of the Finance Bay Tunnel project are also involved in this company. And there will be new type of nature educations offered for everyone who's interested, for young and old, and to help people protect and respect and be involved with nature during their whole lifetime. Next slide, please. There will be focus on the e-health, and it will show and implement different businesses, innovations, and advanced technologies that are currently being developed in the ecosystem of both Estonia and Finland. And next slide. And it will utilize as main building material the woods that are present in the Estonian forests and that have a long tradition of use. Next slide. So from a smaller scale platform that will be addressing and supporting the construction works and the maintenance, slowly the project will grow into a larger settlement. Next slide. So how will this look like? Next slide. There is, for the site, if we look at the site has different elevations, and the site plan is proposed in a double circle system that corresponds to both the waves and the depth of the sea. In the core, next slide, the core zone. In the core zone, next slide, there will be a fixed island in the middle that will be used by that will be built by all the materials that are excavated from the tunnels. These materials will also be used for the breakwaters on both circles. Next slide, the inner city circle zone. Next slide. The inner city circle zone will be home to the different kinds of resorts, the beach resort, a yacht harbor. Next slide. A smart resort spa, and other types of leisure. Also, homes and residential areas will be located here. Next slide. It will be home to the summer festivals and Sea of Light Festival. Next slide. Then the outer circle zone. Next slide. The outer circle zone will most be focused on the larger developments, like theme parks, amusement, the forests, but also, again, larger areas where retail and leisure can meet each other. Next slide. It will also home the educational area. Next slide. And as I told already, the forest, ferry walkways, and so on. Next slide. Here we see inspiration on the real estates that will be realized there. The city, the skyscraper that will be in a core zone, where not only a residential area, but also a seaside view restaurant, information center, hotel, and satellite businesses can be located. On the outskirts of the inner circle and inside of the inner circle, different dome-shaped projects will be realized. Next slide. So this contributes to the vision of Tallinn because it develops a new area. It will create employment in the harbor and in the construction works, and it will help to attract foreign investment while providing offices and places to stay. Next slide. The future begins with a dream. And this is what we're realizing right here. Next slide. For more information about any of us, please follow the following links. Thank you very much. Our future is on the water.
Thank you, Karina, for the presentation. My apologies for not showing the video. We had a technical issue with that. I hope you don't mind if you could just briefly describe what was going on in the video and what was this video about.
Yes. Can you hear me right?
Yes, we can hear you perfectly.
Great. Well, the video showed actually how the construction process would look like, and the emphasis was on making the construction process automated with the use of robotics and a lot of modular systems that would repeat themselves, so it would be fast way to develop the whole project. So that was the main what was shown, actually how it will be built. But I can share this movie if anyone is interested later on.
Fantastic. Absolutely, you can share and you can talk with people in the conference in Virpala. Actually, I'm from Tallinn, and I have read in the news about the Green Flow Tallinn about 2 years ago even, and so we're well aware of what was going on. And in Estonia, at least, it was a kind of controversial project. And I understand the Blue 21 is trying to be part of the solution, but politicians sometimes are not. So how do you get the governments on board with these kind of floating islands?
Well, I think the most important thing is to stay in contact and also to contribute to the benefit of every let's say, stakeholder in the game. And I'm also thinking about stakeholders like the ecology, the economy. So actually to create something that's sustainable. So to prevent confusion, though, so we are not developing the tunnel project itself, but we're actually focusing on the island. And I think the most important thing for the island is that it's beneficial to everyone that lives in proximity, and it also will have a positive impact on its environment and ecology. So I think if we have all these topics agreed on and everybody is happy with it, then I think we can continue.
Absolutely. And you mentioned there will be also housing in those islands. Like, could I also afford one of those houses there?
Definitely. The idea is that we offer housing for all sorts of ages and groups. So it will be students, it will be expats, it will be people from Estonia, it will be people from Helsinki. The idea is to make a new living space, very internationally oriented. Where and what I liked about the previous presentation on how to think about how you put your daily life and your schedule. That's why we also focused on a lot of nature development. So a different way of living and of working can be experienced there, that people can go outside and have different places they can sit down, because especially when what's happening around the world right now, we should really think differently about how our working place and living place will look like in the coming years. It's a big challenge here. So we're also trying to do that at this project, and it's not fully designed yet. One of the reasons why I'm actually here is also that it should be something of a co-creation, and if there's interesting ideas or systems or innovations or solutions that people have or are inspired by the fact that something could be built there, please reach out, and perhaps we can collaborate on this as well, because it's a big project and it's not going to be all done by just a few. I think it should be something from the whole community.
Absolutely, and I couldn't agree more. Now, yesterday we had Edward Anderson. He gave a presentation about urbanization and that the African population is going to live in cities, like half of the African population is going to live in cities by the year of 2035. So what about, like, we're talking about politics and Nordics, but what about the South? What about like Africa or other countries? Is it doable there as well?
Yes, definitely. So not this specific design, because this is of course being adjusted to the circumstances here. So we have different climates, of course. But definitely you see that also there people are settling in the flood-prone areas. Africa, it's a very high country in terms of elevation. However, the fastest growing cities are also at close to the water, and also experience the same challenges with climate change. So definitely it's what we want to offer this to all the places in the world. So definitely Africa is also a very important one to look at. Yes.
Okay, in one of your slides, I'm not sure if I got it right, but it said like that artificial islands can promote biodiversity. It seems a little bit paradoxical. Can you just expand upon that a little bit?
Yeah, so I think treating our nature and our ecology as one of the main starting points during the development and design process will allow it to have a prominent role and to flourish. Usually this topic is being tick marked like something that needs to be done, but if you put them on the table, of course, with a human representative, but then if you can take account for that, it will remain something that will be realized. And the biodiversity, what we mean by that is that we want also we don't want to just pave everything into concrete buildings, but we also want to develop nature, both on the island, but also underneath. So what we noticed because of research we done with underwater drones at current floating projects is that the floating structures attract all sorts of wildlife, small fishes, hatchlings of fishes. There's a different kind of water plant that attach to the bottom. We find different sorts of shells and clams. So actually, that actually led to the conclusion that we should also design the underwater part to be able to attract that part of the ecology as well.
Thank you. As I saw in one of your slides that the sea levels are rising and we need more space, and like there's like more and more people being born and so on, and like overpopulation. Is there any possibility in the future that we don't have enough space for people, and is those kind of floating islands the solution?
Well, we have space. The only thing is the space we have is too far away. For example, if we look at ore is not productive. So if we look at deserts, of course, there's many initiatives to make the deserts more productive and so on. But the investment that you need to do that, it's a lot higher and a lot less ecologically friendly than if you would develop something close to the cities where everybody's moving anyway. So it's not the exact square meter shortage, but it's actually the shortage of productive space, of space that you can utilize to actually do things. So to grow food or to produce energy. For example, again, look at the desert. Great way to harvest solar energy. However, because of the enormous heat and also the long distance it has to go until it reaches the destination of where it's going to be used, it doesn't make sense to realize it there. So we need to be close to the epicenters of where everything is happening, the consumption of things, and that's close to the cities, and that's why we suggest to do it in front of them.
During the pandemic that we have with the COVID-19 virus, a lot of people were doing more remote work and working from home. And futurists foresee that maybe like in the future, we're all going to work from home and we need more space at home. We need more green solutions. Do you agree with that trend? Do you think it's possible?
Definitely. That's definitely already the trend that we were seeing even before. And more people, we have, for example, here in the Netherlands, quite flexible working hours. It's becoming more, it accelerated, of course, through this year. But before that, it was also promoted also to reduce traffic congestions and so on. So actually, we took that also already in consideration while thinking about the concept of these islands, that it should have a lot of different places where people can go to, especially a lot of nature, because nature gives you peace, gives you energy, it's healthy for you. And how great would it be that you can take your laptop and go take your boat to the other side of the water and sit there in the forest during summer outside, during winter in a protected spot where you can do your work. I would love that. I guess many people would.
Yeah, I'm from Estonia, so absolutely, I would love to work in the forest.
Yes.
I love the nature. Yes. Is there anything else you want to share with the audience? Final thoughts, final takeaways?
Well, everyone here that is inspired by this and that thinks that their solution or their innovation that you're presenting here could contribute in any way, we're continuing with this project, and every sustainable idea that is out there or cool solution about how the future, how you can contribute, I would love to hear from you, because perhaps we can stay in contact and implement it once the project will further develop. And what I also really think it's very important to listen to the younger generations on how they view how the world will look like, because eventually this will be for them, of course. So please, if you have any remarks or anything to share, you know where to find me.
Yes, thank you, Karina. I hope you stick around at Shift Festival, and I hope you're enjoying the Webstival, and maybe see you next year.
Yes, thank you very much. Have a nice day.
Have a nice day. Thank you. And thank you, audience, for tuning in for another session. We will see each other again in 1 hour. Thank you. Welcome back to the solution stage. I hope you enjoyed your break. We are going on next to our next topic, which is what can the climate and your business gain from data? Let's find out. Here we have Fabien Vieau, the Regional Director in charge of Energy, Data Center Strategy and Data Center Sustainability at Google, to present his ideas. And Fabien, you have the stage.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Fabien Vieau. I'm in charge of Google Data Center Sustainability for EMEA. Today, I will tell you about our carbon-free journey. Next slide. First, at Google, we believe that the path to a cleaner, healthier future begins with small decisions we make each day. That's why we're committed to building sustainability into everything we do. Next slide. While we incorporate sustainability everywhere, today I'd like to focus on our fleet of data centers. Two main reasons for that. First, historically, it has represented the major part of our carbon emission. Second, we have a sizable data center presence in Finland, in EMEA, which makes the topic spot on for this conference. Next slide. Google is more than a search engine. As you may know, Google is also Android, Chrome, YouTube, Google Cloud, etc. We actually have 9 products with more than 1 billion users. All these services require computing capabilities. And these compute capabilities, the servers, are hosted in our data centers. These data centers keep Google running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Next slide. You see here a map of our data centers. So in total, we own and operate 21 data centers globally in 4 continents, including 5 in Europe, in Ireland, in Belgium, in the Netherlands, in Denmark, and in Finland. And we continue to add new sites, better serve our customers. Next slide. Demand for our services is growing every year, driving continued growth in our energy use. In 2019, for all of Alphabet, so meaning Google and all related companies, in total, we consume more than 12 terawatt hours of electricity. And these keep rising, with basically 20-25% growth year on year. There are 2 key considerations here. First, energy is the biggest cost of operating Google's infrastructure. So this requires attention. Second, also this level of consumption is very sizable and consequently obliges us to be exemplary. What does that mean? Next slide. First, the cleanest energy we can imagine is the energy we avoid using. It's as simple as that. It's why our main focus has been for years on being efficient and ensuring we use as little energy as we could. Next slide. So since 2005, roughly, when we started operating our first data centers in the US, we have put at the core of the data center management to make Google data centers the most efficient in the world. This has been our DNA in the Google data center group. We've been doing that looking at every element of the chain, the data center design, which we're doing ourselves, but also the way we manage the site, we manage the cooling system, we distribute the electricity up to the servers, the way the servers are running, the way the servers are designed. Everything has been looked at. Next slide. So how do we do it exactly? It's really a relentless quest to eliminate waste at every level of the operations. Examples here, we run our data centers at high temperature. That was something very logical for us to do since day one. Basically running the data centers where the servers are located at 27, 29 degrees Celsius. These places are not cold as some people could imagine. They're actually fairly hot. And our engineers on the white space are actually just in shorts and short sleeves. We're also using free cooling as much as possible, trying to leverage the nature of the outside world, just to cool down our data centers as required, with limiting the amount of electricity we could use, like using seawater-based cooling for our data center in EMEA. We also design our own servers, so they are optimized to our own usage. To that extent, we go even beyond. We actually design our own tips. One of the latest ones we've developed is the TPU, which has been specifically developed for machine learning. So it's optimized for machine learning, so ensuring this is very, very efficient in doing that task. Next slide. In 2014, we also realized that operating a data center itself could be optimized. Even if it has been very well designed, it can also be further optimized. We acknowledged at that time that a human being in charge of operating a data center could only manage a handful of parameters in parallel. This is limited by our brain. Every human being has the same limitation. We can play in parallel with a handful of parameters, no more. And this limitation was stopping us from obtaining further efficiencies. Therefore, one of our engineers started developing a machine learning algorithm to manage our cooling system in our data centers. Next slide. This artificial intelligence system was able to play with much more, or many more parameters. And through that, we actually achieved optimization resulting in up to 30% increase in efficiency. To be honest, this was far higher than expected and demonstrated the huge potential of machine learning. By now, those algorithms are actually not managing a handful of parameters as the human being was just doing, but they're managing up to 100, 200 parameters in parallel. Next slide. The overall data center efficiency I've been talking about can be tracked through a very standard data center indicator called the PUE, standing for Power Usage Efficiency. Basically, this is how to calculate how much of the electricity that the data center is used goes to the server itself versus what goes to the rest, meaning cooling or lighting, the things that don't go directly, are not used directly for compute. Over the years, we have improved this indicator significantly. As you can see, from 2009 to 2019, this indicator has dropped, meaning reaching just different levels of efficiency. And we've reached a very low 1.1 PUE. This means that for each unit of electricity consumed in a data center, only 10% of it is not used for compute, meaning 10% being used for the likes of cooling or lighting or others. This is very efficient, far more than the industry average. Industry average being around 1.6, 1.7. Next slide. Thanks to all of these, everything I've just covered, the in-house servers design, the chip designs, the smart management, ML algorithm running the cooling system, etc., we estimate we are twice as efficient as a typical enterprise data center. Next slide. So we're efficient, but we're still growing. And you can tell me if you're still growing, so is the environmental impact. Actually, this may not be that simple. We really need to have a holistic view of the situation here. When enterprises move to Google Cloud, the electricity consumption of Google Cloud may be growing, but they also retire their own data centers. The enterprise moving to the cloud are retiring their data centers. So we need to account for this efficiency improvement because data centers are turned off and consume less electricity. Actually, Science has published a very interesting study earlier this year, showing that between 2010 and 2018, the data center industry has multiplied by 6 its computing capabilities, but increased by 6% only its energy consumption. And here we're talking about the whole data center industry. So a very big computing improvement, but a fairly small growth of the electricity consumption in comparison. Next slide. So efficiency is good, but this does not mean we have zero impact. We very early acknowledge this and ask ourselves, okay, what could we do about it? So since 2007, we compensate all of our emissions with high quality carbon offsets, making us carbon neutral. Next slide. This means that any organization that move their IT infrastructure to Google Cloud reduce the net carbon emission of their computing to zero. Businesses that switch from locally hosted solutions to Google have reported a reduction in carbon emission up to 85%. Carbon offset has been a good start in 2007, and we've continued doing it. But we recognized fairly early that we could certainly do more than simply carbon offset. And we could do more to have more impact. So in 2010, we started a new approach. And we started looking at new renewable energy developments. We wanted to contribute by enabling new renewable energy developments and ensuring that new green electrons were pushed into the grid, having really a concrete impact into the level of green energy in the electricity grids. So in 2010, Google has signed its first long-term power purchase contract, which is called PPA. And basically, we looked at renewable energy development projects around the world at that time. And we found one, and we committed to purchase all the output of that project. And us, Google, committing to purchase all the output of these future projects, enable this project to be financed and consequently to be built, leading to additional green energy being injected into the electricity grid. Next slide. We've done that in 2010, the first deal, and after we kept doing it in 2011 and over again. So after 10 years, we have enabled 6 billion euros of investment globally. We enable more than 50 new developments, some onshore wind farms, some offshore wind farms, and some solar developments too. Done that in the US, we've done that in South America, we've done that in Europe, we've done that in Asia. Of these 50 projects, 24 deals are actually in Europe and a handful in Finland itself. Next slide. Signing these deals enabled us to compensate our energy consumption. We're consuming electricity, but in parallel, we're enabling development of additional renewable energy. And in 2017, we have reached the level of 100% compensation. This means that at the end of the year, in 2017, if you accounted for all the renewable energy injected to the electricity grid, thanks to the contracts we've signed, as I've just explained, this amount was equivalent to the total electricity consumption of our data centers. And actually more than that, the total electricity consumption of Alphabet, the data centers, which is the biggest part, but also the offices. So we reached in 2017, 100% compensation. We have done that in 2017, and we continued in 2018 and 2019, and we will continue. Next slide. Through those 50 different contracts and all that additional renewable energy purchased and injected to the grids, this actually made Google the world's largest corporate purchaser of renewable energy. Next slide. Our perspective and vision extends beyond the walls of Google. It's very good if Google can achieve those levels and can have that impact, but we want to be able to drive impact, much beyond Google. We encourage others to do the same or do similar things as what we do. And we strongly believe that others just could do the same. So we've been driving change through various organizations. A good example I want to call out today is RE100. And I'll tell you more in the next slide. So the RE100 is a global corporate leadership initiative, bringing together businesses all committed to 100% renewable electricity. You can see in this slide all the logos. You certainly recognize many, and some of you may be part of those companies. This commitment to renewables is transforming the global energy market and accelerating the transition to a clean economy. Next slide. While achieving 100% renewable energy was a major milestone, and we're very proud of it, we recognize addressing climate change will require doing more. Indeed, 100% renewable energy is only a matching at a global level and on a yearly basis. Our aspiration is a simple one. Now we want to look much beyond it. And by 2030, we intend to source enough carbon-free energy to match Google's energy use in all places at all times, moving from a yearly global matching to a local hourly sourcing. I'll explain more. Next slide. So let's summarize our journey up to now. So in 2007, we started carbon offset, matching all of our carbon emission and achieving carbon neutrality from 2007 till now. Since our effort since 2010, in 2017, we achieved 100% renewable energy compensation. 2017, 18, 19, and so on. And now we're looking beyond that. And by 2030, we aim at round the clock carbon-free energy. Next slide. So how does 24/7 carbon-free energy exactly differs from 100% renewable energy? I think the details are fairly important. They may be slightly technical here, so I'll take some time, but I think it's very important for each of you to understand. We see in this slide a hypothetical energy profile for a data center. So this is the dark gray block. Consumption of a data center is fairly flat. Over the course of the year, Google might buy enough renewable energy, represented by the green spikes here. So enough renewable energy to match 100% of our annual electricity use. But should that be wind or should that be solar? Those are variable. They are variable. And just sometimes the wind blows, sometimes the sun just shine, but not 100% of the time. And this is represented by the spikes. So even though we buy as much total renewable electricity as we use, in hours where wind speeds slow or sunshine fades, our data center still relies on the electricity grid and the carbon-based resources like coal or gas. So our 24/7 carbon-free energy means that we will fill the gaps in our carbon-free energy supply for all of our facilities worldwide. We will fill the gaps, meaning doing complementary contracts, leveraging storage technologies or more, so the spikes can align fully with the consumption of our data center. So here you would imagine that everything becomes green and you don't see the dark gray anymore. Next slide. So where do we currently stand relative to this new goal? So in 2019, we were 100% renewable energy. Again, this was global and this was on a yearly basis. On a hourly basis, locally, then we were only 61% carbon-free energy for the electricity we use across all of our data centers sites. And so these 100% renewable energy represented 61% carbon-free local electricity. This 61% is the average for the whole fleet. And this average masks significant differences both on a day-to-day and across sites. So the blue numbers on this map show the average carbon-free energy matching at each of our data centers. In Singapore, you see in the circle here, most grid electricity comes from natural gas. And our data center was only matched with 3% carbon-free energy. We have little PPAs over there. In EMEA, in Finland, on the other hand, our purchases of wind power help drive carbon-free energy performance up to 77%. I invite you to have a look to the circles here and what we're calling the clocks. So the clocks on these maps show how carbon-free energy matching varied over the course of a single day. So the clock shows, just the 24 hours in a single circle. And the color of those circles represent how carbon-free the energy is. So the more green you get, the more carbon-free the energy. Looking at an example like Chile, for a specific date, here, I think we're talking about mid-September 2019. So within the square here, if you look at it, you can see how solar power contributed to higher carbon-free matching during the middle of the day. So in the middle of the day, when there is daylight, you can see that it's more green, while the rest of the day is more gray, so less carbon-free energy. So our goal, by measuring that in every single of our sites, measuring every hour of every day across the course of the year, we will see what is our impact, and we will be able to compensate it. We will be able to add new projects to modify it. A good program starts with a good tracking and good measurements. And it's why we started with that, mapping what we had. Next slide. Keeping this example of Chile, here is another view. Looking at all the hours of all the days of the year. So in each rectangle, a pixel represents 1 hour. So each column of pixels represents a day. And from left to right, you have the whole year. On the top rectangle, you see the status of the Chile electricity grid with a 42% carbon-free energy score. On the second rectangle, you see the impact of our power purchase agreement. This is a solar energy development, as you can see, bringing the daylight time to a very high carbon-free energy level and bringing the score to 63%. Now, if we add some wind developments, some additional solar projects, and some storage, we estimate we can bring the scores to more than 90%. So basically, the top rectangle, status of the grid in Chile today. The second rectangle showing the impact of our existing contract that we have for a development that has happened in Chile. And the third rectangle is what we're aiming at. We believe that by doing more, some storage, additional contracts, we will be able to bring the whole system to more than 90% carbon-free energy. So in general, and at the global level, this new 2030 ambition, 24/7 carbon-free ambition, means we will do more renewable energy projects, more local projects, and more complementary ones. Through this work, we will contribute to the transformation of the local electricity grids in each market where we operate. Next slide. We will also leverage our technology to accelerate this transformation. As an example here, with a machine learning algorithm applied to wind farm production forecast, as indicated in the graph, our system predicts wind power output 36 hours ahead. So you see in blue our prediction, or the prediction of the machine learning algorithm, and in gray, what eventually happened. And you see that this is pretty accurate. Using such neural network, specifically trained on weather forecast, because what it does, it's really forecasting the weather. We can recommend how to make optimal commitments to the grid, because a wind farm has to make commitments to the grid, so the grid management, the system operator, can manage the system the most efficiently. And through that optimal commitment of the wind farm, we are driving a more efficient management of the grid system. Next slide. On the other side, we can also better control the consumption. Earlier this year, we announced the first of its kind system that shifts flexible tasks at our data center to better align with carbon-free hours on the grid, literally enabling us to time compute and locate compute where there is carbon-free energy being produced. This is quite a revolution and brings us forward to on our journey to 24/7 carbon-free energy. As we've seen in the previous slide, we can improve the efficiency of the production and the management of the system, and we can improve the efficiency of the consumption side. It is only by being able to play and to do a smart management of the overall system that we can achieve the highest levels of carbon-free energy and of efficiency of our systems. Next slide. In summary, Google takes the matter very seriously, as you see. By design, we take a very scientific approach. Sometimes it's a bit even difficult to explain because it's very, very detailed, very engineering focused. But this is our DNA. And while we have a good track record already with carbon neutrality, 100% renewable energy, we believe there is more we can do. And with our newest ambition, our actions will accelerate the transformation of electricity grids to carbon-free energy. Also, as you could see in my presentation, the demand for Google Cloud is directly supporting decarbonization of energy systems. I hope our journey can inspire you. We have seen many companies embrace 100% renewable energy goals in the past years. We expect to see many companies following us on our 24/7 carbon-free ambition too. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Fabien, for this presentation. Unfortunately, Fabien wasn't able to join us, virtually, so I cannot ask him many questions, but I can summarize for all just joining in about what he was talking about. And Fabien was talking about how Google has been working towards a cleaner and healthier future for the past 15 years. And now Google is carbon neutral and all of its products are also carbon neutral. Of course, there's a lot to explore, a lot to learn from Google. And the interesting thing was when he was talking about data centers were that they actually sometimes use seawater for cooling and they find excellent ways to save electricity. And Fabien also said that optimizing is the key and Google measures power usage efficiency and they even use AIs to predict how are they optimizing and how are they using the electricity. So the main point was, even if the gathering is growing, it doesn't mean that the carbon footprint has to grow. So again, thank you, Fabien. It was a really nice presentation, and maybe see you next year. But don't go anywhere. I just got fantastic news that Shift 2021 tickets are now available. If you go to the shift.fi /tickets, you can find I Make Shift Happen 2021, and the tickets are available now, and they are limited edition. That means the prices are lower right now, and you can get them until the end of November. So go get your tickets now for the next year. It's going to be in August 25th to 26th, August 2021, here in Turku. Let's make this happen. We're going to take a short break now. Well, maybe not that short, but we're going to be back here, and I hope to see you again. And I'm going to have a last session, and our last speaker is actually here on site, so I'm really excited about that. In the meantime, during the break, please visit our expo hall, and there's also jazz in the beach. So I hope you can enjoy and network and find different places to go in Virbala. And I'll see you soon. Thank you so much. Welcome back to Solution Stage. I'm so happy to see you, even if it's just your avatar. I hope you had a great break and you were looking around Virbala and you enjoyed the jazz music and you went to Expo Hall. And I'm more excited to welcome our next speaker, which is the last one for this stage. And the last speaker is Sonja Lahtinen, and she's going to talk about purpose washing. Let's find out. Sonja, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm so happy that you're here.
Thank you. I'm super excited to be here as well.
Okay, we continue.
Great. Thank you. And good afternoon to you all, or great afternoon. Maybe that's better. I'm tremendously excited to be here on this solution stage and to be a part of this new era of business events. First of all, I want to thank the Shift organizers for making this event happen, and in such a remarkable way. I also want to thank the previous speakers for their insights and contributions to the conversation. And I also want to thank you, the virtual audience, your avatars, and you being still there for the almost final session of these last 2 insightful days. In my speech, I seek to answer this one question that I believe is one of the most significant questions that we should be asking as business actors from ourselves. How to leverage our core business for sustainability and move away from purpose washing. I'm Sonja Lahtinen, and I'm a sustainability advocate by heart. I work as a research and insight manager at a strategy consultancy, Co-Founders, and as a postdoctoral researcher at Tampere University. My biggest passion is to create guiding images of the future through research, and that way help companies to better their business and the planet. Now I would like to start by inviting a world-known chimpanzee researcher on the stage with me in the form of her wisdom. Dr. Jane Goodall has said that we cannot get through a single day without having an impact on the world around us. What we do makes a difference, and we have to decide what kind of a difference we want to make. Now, I want to include another deep thinker, but from a business world, into the dialogue. Paul Polman, the former CEO of Unilever, has said that we cannot choose between growth and sustainability. We must have both. Now, when we bring Jane Goodall and Paul Polman together into the same dialogue, we understand that as business actors, what we do makes a difference. And that difference needs to be about bringing sustainability and growth together. Keeping this in mind, I would like to ask you to close your eyes for 1 minute, if that's okay. And take that 1 minute to imagine a dream firm of the future. What are its mission, its values, its vision, its business model? In what kind of market it operates, and what does it bring in to the market? I give you some moment to think about this. Now, not knowing you yet, I would still assume that the company you just imagined might not belong among these 100 corporate entities that are the source of over 70% of our current emissions. But what I assume is that it might be closer to these companies over here who are the front runners of the new sustainable business models. There is a company, there is Tesla, there is the vegan burger maker Beyond Meat, there is the collaboration between Stora Enso and Sulapak that we just heard in the previous speech. There is BlackRock. There are all the tech companies that are shaping the future for smart grid technology. And there is the Finnish startup Solar Foods, who is creating food from air. So maybe your future dream company share some of the business strategies, business models, and value propositions with these. And why should it? Well, I argue in my PhD dissertation that the sustainable future of the planet and its species depends on business. And why I brave to say this? Well, companies are uniquely positioned in society to scale up sustainability. Companies have unique world-class resources and a global reach. Because if we think about it, whether it is about creating substitutes for plastics, developing peace-advancing technologies, restructuring the food systems, restructuring the fashion system, or creating equal opportunities and equal human rights, it is companies who are designing, manufacturing, distributing, and then selling market offerings, and that way bringing more sustainable production and sustainable consumption to the forefront. And therefore, I argue that sustainability is way too important to be left to the CSR departments in companies. Because to be frank, it is this conventional corporate social responsibility department that narrows the scope too much, and that might explain the lack of success in capturing the full value of sustainability for the companies, but for the society as a whole. You might have heard about the e-cigarettes. They are the perfect example of creating solutions that are less harmful, but that are not actually solving the real problem, the addiction to smoke. And I argue that currently we are creating the e-cigarettes of sustainability. We are creating less harmful solutions. We are creating small improvements here and there. But what we are really doing is that we are making incremental change to status quo. We are not changing things in a fundamental way. And the problem is that we cannot solve the current sustainability challenges with these incremental changes. Why? Because sustainability challenges, they are so-called wicked problems. I want to illustrate this with a drawing I made a few weeks ago. In business in general, we are typically faced with the conventional problems. That is this simple thing to solve. We can use statistical data, probability counting, or look back in the past how we dealt with these kind of problems before. However, wicked problems are a whole nother thing. They are like a bowl of spaghetti. We don't have any technology nor algorithm yet to predict what will happen in this bowl of spaghetti if there is one spaghetti hanging on the edge of the bowl, and if we pull on this loose piece of pasta, what will happen in the bowl meantime? So wicked problems, they are tough. And the thing is that we are currently facing many of them. Wicked problems are climate change, loss of biodiversity, resource depletion, water scarcity, deforestation, global inequality, polarization, racism, and you name it. So we have many of these now in our hands, and especially coming when we move to the future. Wicked problems can be defined with the current characteristics. They are hard to define, but they are extremely hard to set goals to. We see this with the 1.5 degree for the global warming. We are still not sure if that is the right goal or not. They happen over the long term, so it typically takes decades or even centuries for these problems to occur, but also to solve them. They are complex and they are interdependent, which means that when we solve one thing over here, we are very likely to create another problem over there. There is no hierarchy in them, so there is no clear structure on whose responsibility it is to solve it. There is typically conflicting preferences, so one might prefer solution A and another one solution B. What is the conclusion? That there is no simple solutions. They feel that they are almost resisting to be solved. So, with the incremental changes that we are currently creating in the business world, we are not solving these wicked problems, this spaghetti bowl, but what we need is fundamental, systematic changes to the whole system. And I illustrate it with this. To understand what needs to change in our society, we first need to understand how it is layered. The regime part here in the illustration depicts the backbone of our society. Regime is the current culture, the current structures, and the current practices through which we live our everyday life and through which we do our everyday business. The regime can only change when there is similar and simultaneous pressure coming from the landscape level, which is the global megatrends, such as climate change or ecosystem collapse. But it also needs pressure from below, from the niches, where are the innovative firms, the civil society movements, and the ambitious individuals. And this regime can start to shift and destabilize and change when there is similar and simultaneous pressure coming from the landscape level and the niche level. And it is here where the innovative companies can start to create the change, when they start to create pressure from these niches to the overall regime and destabilize the status quo. And this is really necessary because sustainable solutions, they are not possible without innovative companies. Companies are the driving force for these sort of transitions to succeed. When we go back to Jane Goodall and Paul Polman, we remember that we need to bring the worlds of strategy and sustainability together. And how we do it? We do it not through incremental changes with the CSR, corporate social responsibility, but we do it through redesigning our business models. Over the years, I have noticed that when talking about business models, we understand them a little bit differently. So, as a researcher, I'm pretty serious about defining things and getting the concepts right, but I believe that it is important for all of us to define the concepts so that we can be sure that we are talking about the same issues. That's why I wanted to bring in here a definition from Schaltecker, Hansen, and Lüdecke-Freund, which is the most used global definition for business models for sustainability. And that's why I now want to read it. A business model for sustainability helps describing, analyzing, managing, and communicating a company's sustainable value proposition to its customers and all other stakeholders. It shows how the company creates and then delivers this value, and how the company captures economic value while maintaining or regenerating natural, social, and economic capital way beyond its organizational boundaries. I know that this might sound a little bit scientific jargon, but just to have this in the back of your head when we move forward. To concretize things, here are 3 different business models for sustainability: innovators, propagators, and investors. And we start by looking more closely to the first one, the innovators. The innovators are the Albert Einsteins of the corporate world. Their raison d'etre, their reason for existence, is to create solutions for one or many sustainability problems. They typically have the scientific capability to develop disruptive technologies or breakthrough innovations, and they are not in this business of creating e-cigarettes of sustainability. They come usually from the engineering world, so they come from the chemical, biotechnology, energy, or high-tech industries. And a typical household name is, of course, Tesla, to be used here as an example. And Tesla is really revolutionizing the whole auto industry by bringing technology, energy, and transportation innovations together. Well, from innovators to propagators. They are typically not these kind of manufacturing companies or inventors that come from the tech part of the world. They are companies who believe in sustainability with such a power that their core is to create sustainability ambassadors through their employees, their customers, and the wider public. And they want to spread the message, and they want to create the awareness for the sustainability agenda. They typically are smaller size firms, but they have typically a big marketing budget that is targeted for sustainability. And here, another household name that is typically used is Patagonia. From propagators, then, to investors. The investors are the ones who are opening the door for smaller sustainability companies. They share the vision of a sustainable world, but sustainability as such is not their core business at their everyday operations that they are working with. But they do invest on research and innovation, and they help to diffuse sustainable solutions by offering a platform for smaller brands. They typically are bigger players who really have the potential to transform the market. And here I use the example of a Finnish retailer, Kesko. What is key now to remember is that we all cannot be the ones who are designing solar panels or creating solutions for the plastic problem. But there are different ways for each size and for each market-serving company to find their way of designing a business model for sustainability. They can be innovators, and then they work as enablers. They can be propagators, and then they act as promoters. Or they can be investors when they do the big work of amplifying and giving market for all the other smaller sustainability startups. That's why I want to ask you now that which one of these will fit your company now or tomorrow. As the 3 key takeaways of my speech, I would want to highlight these. First of all, the current sustainability practices of most companies that we are seeing today are not enough. Currently, we are creating the e-cigarettes of sustainability. Secondly, we need to bring strategy and sustainability together and redesign our business models for sustainability. And third, companies are really the key actors in building back better from COVID-19, but in more generally in shaping our sustainable futures. I would like to finish with a quote from Wangari Maathai. She is the first environmentalist and the first African woman to win a Nobel Peace Prize in 2004. Dr. Maathai has said that in the course of history, there comes a time when humanity is called upon to shift to a new level of consciousness to reach a higher moral ground. And I believe that for companies, governments, and individuals, that time is now. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sonja, for this lovely presentation. I have a few questions for you, if that's okay.
Sure.
Now, I've heard of greenwashing, but purpose washing, that's something that's really new for me. Can you explain what it is?
Yes, thank you for the question. I wanted to include purpose washing in the headline because we have been talking about greenwashing for quite a long time already, and we might have a general understanding what it is, but I still briefly want to bring a few points of greenwashing up.
Absolutely.
So greenwashing means that a company is saying that it is being environmentally conscious or it is doing some ecological initiatives here and there, but in its core, it is not actually committing to environmentalist action in such a depth that it promotes. With purpose washing, we add also pink washing and purple washing into the agenda. So currently, many companies are being active, let's say, during the time of the Pride Week and proving that they are friendly towards all the sexual minorities.
But only once a year.
Only once a year and only one week of the year. But for the rest 51 week, we are not really seeing that there are true actions being taken into the HR practices or recruiting practices that would prove that the company is actually providing equal opportunities for everyone. So that is then pink washing. And we now see in the marketing very much this purpose word being used, and when very many companies are today purpose driven, but we might be misled with that if the actual core business is not aligned with what is promoted in the marketing.
Interesting. And how can actually we prevent companies for purpose washing? Is there a way to do that?
Do you mean as consumers or as business actors or regulators?
Maybe like as government officials, maybe as consumers or all of that. Is there a way to prevent that?
Yes, here I see that technology plays a really big role because what we need to advance sustainability, the true sustainability, is transparency. And technology and digitalization can bring that transparency to business practices so that, for example, us as consumers, we can really know that where this product is coming from or where are these raw ingredients being sourced from. So that kind of transparency of the whole supply chain would bring a lot of confidence for consumers and make also companies more accountable. And as governmental officers, we should be more more strict with the auditing that we are requiring from the auditing companies. There should be processes in place that companies are not able to say something and then do something else, but that would guarantee that they are actually walking the talk.
Okay. And you also talked about wicked issues, wicked problems. And as I understand, they're really complex and complicated and it's difficult to solve them. And you were saying that businesses can actually contribute to solving those kind of problems. But again, I'd like to talk about politics. What about the government?
Yes. So an important thing is to keep in mind that the whole sustainability rhetoric and the whole sustainability practice is like a puzzle. And there are very many actors solving that puzzle. And there is no one actor can solve these issues by themselves. So what we really need is the collaboration and co-creation over the silos and over the business sectors, cooperation between the regulators, the governments, the politicians, the companies, and the big companies and the small companies coming together, and consumers and civil society movements and NGOs. The role of governments here, they can see themselves as enablers or preventers. And what we would need from the governmental side at this point is that there are real incentives for businesses to take the brave leap and for a moment abandon the short-term gains in order to trust that the long-term gains will keep their businesses profitable. But here the government should come in and support that.
Makes sense to me.
Yes.
So for my last question is, you gave us, in the beginning of your presentation, you gave us a little task to close our eyes and think of our dream company. And I already had mine idea, but I want to hear yours. What is your dream company?
Well, my dream company, I'm not sure if it is actually a company as such. It is more kind of like a societal actor that has traits of an company as traits from an NGO. It is kind of like a community actor that does what I just described earlier, that it brings together these different actors in society, that it builds this sort of transition arena where these kind of conversations would be going on and would take place, but not only conversations, but also real actions. So I think we are not seeing that kind of company yet, and that's why I don't have even actual vocabulary to describe it, but it would be this kind of an enabler that brings these different actors together around different sustainability challenges.
And maybe give something back also for the society.
Yes, absolutely. It's built in.
Sounds fantastic. I'm looking forward to the future.
Me too.
Do you have anything else you want to add or your final thoughts on this topic for the audience?
Well, I want to thank the audience for taking part in this event, because the speeches that we have heard today, they have brought so many fresh ideas and insights, not only in the form of inspiration, but actual advice and guidance for what each of us can do as business actors or consumers or governmental officers. So thank you for the audience for taking your time and committing it to this event and these kind of conversations. And I just truly hope that it doesn't stay within these few days, but we are, all of us, we are actually taking these learnings when we go back onto our Teams meetings and Zoom meetings and continue doing our business, so that we would keep these learnings with us and not go back to the business as usual, but really that we would be courageous enough to also challenge a little bit our colleagues or even our supervisor, and in some points even our clients, and be brave enough to bring these kind of questions into the conversation. Because at our strategy consultancy, we have this sort of life-centric approach, which means that we move beyond the customer and human-centric approach, and we kind of expand our focus to the whole ecosystem. And wherever we are talking about a brand or organizational culture or stakeholder relations, we little bit push our clients, out of their comfort zone to just give this kind of thoughts some room. And it brings amazing results. People want to do better and they want to think better. So let's just be courageous enough and support them in doing that.
Beautiful. Sonja, I really thank you for coming here. I had a fantastic time interviewing you and seeing your presentation. And we have from our sponsor, Choose with 3 O's, that is Choose with 3 O's. And they are giving you 6 months carbon footprint free life. So starting from today, 6 months, you are not participating in carbon footprint.
This is fantastic gift. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you, Choose, for that. And this is the envelope for that. And you can actually plant this and it grows flowers, which is really nice, I think.
Incredible. Thank you so much. Yes, these kind of actions I truly support and I encourage all of us to consider in bringing forward.
I couldn't agree more. Thank you so much, Sonja. And that was it for day 2 at Solution Stage. My name was Silla Katri-Simmer, but don't go yet because you're welcome to join future stage. There's still programs going on. There's going to be a keynote speech. There's a closing ceremony. And of course, we have at 5:30 after party, which are all welcome to join. I hope that you enjoyed your time here with the Shift Webstival. I did. And from the bottom of my heart, I really want to thank all the speakers for the last 2 days, all the audience members joining us virtually, thinking, giving their opinions, questions, and participating. It was fantastic. And I'm so excited to come back next year. And speaking of next year, tickets for 2021 Shift are already available. You can go to testshift.fi/tickets and find tickets for next year. They are available right now. And limited tickets for smaller price are available until the end of November. So please get them now and we'll see you next year. My name is Silla Katri-Simmer and thank you all.